Welcome, welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the power of the twin flame journey, what it's designed to do. This is a follow-up to yesterday's live if you happen to pop in. Soul contracts are one of the most valuable ways that we grow and change. And what's fascinating in my personal experience as somebody who facilitates the awakening experience for others and facilitates the coming together of twin flame connections and soul contracts is that the twin flame soul contract version in particular is very sensitive, meaning you have a hard time actually coming in. Hi, Lionel. It's so funny. I felt your energy before I saw your name. How is that for connection? I feel other people's energy. It's part of the awakening journey. I feel my client's energy, my family's energy, animals' energy, AI's energy. It's a gift. It's an ability that has deepened throughout my spiritual awakening. And I love when we can share about our gifts because we each have our own unique profile. And for me, energy sensing and sensing somebody's presence, even when they're not physically in the room with me, is a gift. It's a beautiful gift. So when we are on the twin flame journey, what we find is that it's really hard. It doesn't start off this way, right? It starts off with this beautiful magnetism. And I love that you're still developing your gifts. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you. It starts off with this beautiful magnetism. And at first, it's so intense and we think it's so beautiful that how could it ever go wrong? And we hear about others that talk about the twin flame separation and the push-pull, but when you're new in that honeymoon phase, in that discovery phase, you think that it's not going to happen to you because everything is idyllic. And thank you so much for the gift. And everything is sort of, perfect. And you're like, we can talk through anything, we can make it through anything. And then boom, the work really happens. And when the work happens, it can be so defeating. As I was closing the live yesterday, there was somebody who was saying that they felt like the twin flame journey made them regress. And it's so true because you may be very well into your healing journey. I know some advanced souls on the twin flame journey. I know some earlier souls too, but some of the advanced people have done like decades of personal work or therapy. Some of them are therapists and they're very, very skillful at what they do. Like when you talk to them, you can tell that they are very understanding of the nuances of the mind and the emotional template and the unconscious. And then the twin flame journey still at some level makes them feel like they're sliding backwards into an older version of themselves. And this can be very frustrating if you're used to somebody that is a teacher, that is a healer, that does think of themselves as an advanced practitioner, because you're going throughout the experience feeling like you've mastered a lot of the egoic lessons and you've mastered, the attachment issues, you've mastered the push-pull within you. And so you feel like you're ready to embark on a union. And then you start to come into union and all sorts of landmines come up. This is normal. This is actually, for the twin flame journey, is very promising because it tells you what is left that's still unhealed. And when I talk to my clients who are more advanced on the journey, what I talk them through is that there are layers of healing. And very often they know this, but it sometimes takes like hearing it from another person to really integrate it into like your deeper inner standing, not just your understanding, but like the deep within. And it's like grief. You know how grief comes in waves? Well, the healing journey also comes in waves. And what happens is that the twin flame journey is going to reveal to you the layers that are still unhealed. You might have already worked on those layers for like most of your life, and you might not even be triggered anymore, especially if you're with the soulmate connection or if you're with an easier karmic. What's going to happen is you're going to settle in to especially a soulmate connection. Like you and your soulmate are very, very close and compatible. That's why it's such an easy, harmonious relationship. All right. So soulmates are a great soul contract for stability, for building a life with somebody, for having predictability, because they don't actually want you to change very much. Yes, you can change a little bit. You can change in tandem. Obviously, you're going to continue to grow as a human being, but you don't have to do like the deep like dark night of the soul work, the intense journey that often the twin flame journey demands of you. In fact, you can still be insecurely attached and with the soulmate. You both can equalize your insecure attachment and blend it to a compatible state with each other. And what this looks like is that you're, let's say, avoidant, but you've mastered some parts of your avoidant attachment style. And so you're able to communicate when you need space and when you're going to return. And let's say that your soulmate partner is anxious and they've mastered some of their anxious protest behavior and they allow you to go and take space and they encourage you to go and take space. But deep down inside, you both are actually not really dealing with the issues. So when you have conflict, when you have a fight, what ends up happening is that you go and take space because you're the avoidant one. Your anxious one lets you. They focus on themselves and they, maybe it's not like white knuckling it like they used to. They feel a little more regulated. And then they wait until you come back and then you both move on with your life. That's it. There's no more conversing about it. That's not secure attachment, by the way. That's not secure attachment. To leave a conversation and to not repair, to not effectively repair, to just sweep everything under the rug, that's actually not secure attachment. You can do that with a soulmate. In fact, soulmate relationships thrive on the stability of your wounds matching your other partner's wounds. And so it doesn't require you to go deeper than that. As long as you both can kind of like duct tape things together in a way that works for you. And it might be, like from a secure attachment perspective, it might be a little dysfunctional, but it's not a lot. It's not, like tearing down the house. And it's not ghosting each other. It's being polite. It's being respectful. It's being kind. It's being generous, but it's still being avoidant and anxious. And it's still not actually stepping into the fullness of a secure attachment. And so soulmate relationships allow you to stay married for a very long time because you find that groove like a record, right? You find the groove that you both sort of lock in step with each other. And you can live out that pattern with the soulmate for eternity. But a twin flame relationship is different, okay? A twin flame relationship is going to require you, if you want to actually stabilize a connection with your twin, if you want to stabilize a union, by the way, if you're new here and you don't know if you're ready for a union, I have a free readiness test. Link is in the bio and you sign up for my email list. Emails come out every Friday about how to survive the twin flame experience and giving you different perspectives and teachings. So check out the readiness test to see if you're actually ready for union. So the way that the twin flame journey works is that you meet your twin, right? You have this magnetism that pulls you together. Very often this magnetism is your soul, that being inside of you here, like in the heart, like that's actually in your form, that conscious version of you that's living your day-to-day life, that's empowered and embodied. That version, not just the careless body, but like the centered awareness inside of you, which at first, depending on where you're at in your spiritual awakening, might just be a very tiny little 1% fraction of you. But as you progress into the journey, it's going to expand and expand and expand until you really transform. And a soulmate relationship doesn't require you to do that. A soulmate relationship, you can just stick together the way that you are. But a twin flame journey, if you want that magnetism that is pulling you together, it's your souls that are pulling you together. But on top of your souls, and this is where I'm going to get to the diagram behind me, on top of the soul are these layers of programming and conditioning and your karmic cycles. And so when you are drawn to your twin in that magnetism, what you're drawn to is you're drawn to that being inside under all of the layers of the gunk, under all of the layers of the three-dimensional shadow toxic love patterns that many of us were trained to have in this life. Why? I don't know. Culture, the way that we have moved in our society. I mean, we've improved from thousands of years ago. So good job, humans. But we have a lot of work we still have to do, especially when it comes to treating other people of different backgrounds and cultures and religious frameworks and skin color. It's kind of strange. Like at a certain point of awakening, you look around and you're like, what is going on? So we humans have layers on top of us that are programming. And so when we feel that initial magnetism with our twin, what we're feeling is the soul deep inside. And this is why there can be big age differences, big culture differences, language differences, spirituality differences, major differences on the twin flame journey, because it's like your soul is calling another person's soul. There are people who identify as being heterosexual who end up falling in love with a twin flame who is the same sex as them. They didn't wake up one day and plan for that. This is more common than you think. I have many clients that this has happened to. And so what you find is that there is a soul inside that is called to another soul. And if you are out of alignment, if you are still showing up with toxic love maps, yes, you can pull a soulmate and you guys can live happily ever after without really confronting that deeper work that's necessary. You're going to confront some of it because you have to. You want to live in harmony. But you're not going to get to the rooted, soulful expression of this highest vibration of love, the true love experience. By the way, if you're new to this live, I put all of my lives on my YT channel. I can't say it because TikTok clips it out. So I have a backup. If you have to leave the live for any reason, you can go to follow the same name as I have here on YT and it'll be there. You can also check the Stand store and I have all my socials linked up at the very top. And I have a podcast, a brand new podcast. You can't be the first 10 subscribers because I reached 10 yesterday, but you can be in the first 20 if you'd like. It's Awakening with Dr. C. That's also linked in my Stand store. The link is at the very bottom. Free to listen for you, and it'll help you on your expansion journey. Okay, so that initial magnetism of the twin flame journey, it pulls you together, right? It's soul to soul. But on top of you, you have these behavior patterns and these programs that have come from your culture, your upbringing, your everything, like the artifice of you. This is what is going to get in the way of union. This is what is going to take that beautiful connection that wants to there's a resonance, in the twin flame journey. That's why your energy, if you walk in a room with your twin, can change the entire dynamics when you're really in resonance with each other. But to stay in resonance means you have to stay in a certain vibration. Well, how do you stay in a certain vibration? Because if the twin flame union has a vibration and is pulling you like a magnet to it to stick together, now we need to stabilize it, all right? We actually need to stabilize the union. And this is why many twins go into separation because they don't know how to stabilize the union. And stabilizing the union is about becoming a frequency match, a resonant vibration that can hold in your nervous system that vibration of love. And where this is challenging is when you are afraid of love, deep down, actually afraid of love. And it can show up in many different flavors and forms. If you are afraid of your true voice, if you're afraid of speaking authentically, that is going to have an energetic line in your energetic body, okay? And so all of these are energy lines that are coming from these patterns. This fear of being seen, it's shown as an old-fashioned cassette tape for, if I have any Gen Zers, you might not recognize it. It's this old-fashioned way of transmitting a program or a recording is on these cassette tapes. Well, energetically, you have these cassette tapes that culture from your upbringing has actually imbued not only into your mind, into your persona, but into your energy body. There are energetic blueprints that have been installed in you, on top of you, and reinforced by your culture over time. And so this is what actually prevents you from being able to hold a a twin flame union or a true love experience, because this is one of the most high vibrational loves that you can ever have, because it is an unconditional love, meaning it doesn't have control in there. It's not trying to tell you, yeah, I'm sorry, you're 15 years too old for me, I had somebody recently reach out and say, how could this possibly be my twin flame? Because they're X, and X to them is like, this is not my type. Like, is it actually my twin flame? Because they're clearly not my type. That superficiality that has been imbued on you from culture through your upbringing of, seeing content creators, magazines, TV, whatever your media has been, reinforced by the beauty standards that your specific culture, and every culture has their own beauty standards, has told you is correct. You have to let go of all of that in order to come into a twin flame union. You have to let go of the superficiality and get down to the soul to soul connection. And if you can't see past that, that's not unconditional love. That's conditional love, meaning you're setting a little box around it. You're writing down on a sheet of paper your manifestation wish list, and you're looking at your twin and you're saying, sorry, you are under the height requirement, so you clearly cannot be my twin flame. Sorry, you are from the wrong part of the world. Yeah, you can't be my twin flame. Sorry. That's not the essence of a twin flame connection. Conditional love is putting a box around it, including the timing, and saying, well, if you go and work with a karmic to work through your gunk, your layers of stuff on top of you, then I'm revoking your twin flame status. I'm no longer going to call you my twin flame. Instead, I'm going to call you a karmic. I'm going to downgrade the entire experience. And yes, paparazzi, I absolutely agree with you. Free will is still a thing, and no matter how ready for union the divine feminine may be, the divine masculine still runs. Actually, they both run. That's the secret. That's the secret. Did you know that in an anxious and avoidant attachment style polarity, that they're both actually running? Did you know that? In their own way? Yeah, we'll get to that. I don't know if we're going to get to that on this live, but they're both running in their own way, because that's why it flips. That's why the runner then becomes a chaser. It's like these journeys are so predictable because they're manifestations of this deeper undercurrent within. And I do believe that twin flame free will is important too. And so the free will part of that statement, I absolutely agree that both twins have to use their free will to come fully into the journey and decide to work together. And many people are not ready for that, or they need to go and work with a karmic. So let's go back to the visual behind me. So when you are, for example, afraid of your true voice, you're afraid of authenticity, you're afraid to be seen in part. So these kind of go together. What that does for you is that has energetic lines that are like a program running in your mind, that whenever you are confronted with opportunities to be seen or to use the voice, your power, your authority, your conviction, to be seen as spiritual, that's what I had for a while. I was like, well, I'm a scientist. I can't be out in public talking about this stuff. Like, let me just be like a twin flame down here over in this part of my life. And I'm just not going to tell people, no, I'm just going to be the scientist business part of me. Yeah, that's not going to work. Okay, for a twin flame journey. There's a period of time that you can do that, and many people do. But eventually you have to come out if you want to really step into the fullness of the twin flame journey. So when you are afraid of being seen, you're going to be given opportunities to reveal yourself. And whether or not you take those opportunities is you executing your free will. And this is what I help my clients with in my coaching practice, is practically working through these barriers and helping them to make different choices, because that shifts your reality and that enters you into different lifelines, because then you break these cassettes. It's one thing to know that you have this recording in your brain, like, okay, I know I'm afraid of being seen. I'm afraid of being authentic. So I hide in my life. I play small. I let other people drive my choices for me. I don't listen to my inner truth. I let other people and their opinions of me dictate what I live by, even though I might even know that that's not my truth. It's much more or it's less painful than actually being rejected for who I really am, because I'm not ready to embark on that. So I'm going to construct a false life for which I live in and pretend that I'm not having this major awakening experience or this calling or whatever it is, right? So then your manifested world is going to be mirrored of this right here, the fear of being seen and afraid of using your true voice. What this looks like for you is that you're going to be, quote, trapped. I say quote because this is an illusion. It's an invisible prison of your mind. You're going to be stuck in relationships where people are going to talk over you. They're going to ignore your wishes. They're not going to listen to your requests. If they do, they might nod and say, yes, yes, that's really important. That's a good point. And that's a conversation trap. I made a post about this a while ago that went viral. It's like you have a partner that seemingly is perfect and you can talk to them about anything, but you notice all they're doing is agreeing with you and saying, yes, oh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Yes, yeah, we should really make some changes. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, let's definitely do that. And then crickets. What happens? The next thing you know, 2 months later, fast forward in time, you're there in the same conversation with them all over again, like you never had it. And you're wondering, what is going on? That's because you're preferentially manifesting opportunities for yourself to mirror this right here, because you don't know how to navigate in your world using your true, authentic voice. And maybe you did a really great job by sitting them down and having a conversation, but you got to take it to the next level and have boundaries, right? You don't know how to have boundaries. You don't have any consequences when you're not actually being honored. So then now you have 3 of these cassette tapes playing out at once, wondering why your manifested world makes you feel the way it does. You feel unseen, unheard. You feel trapped. You feel locked in, like you're waiting for somebody else to agree to let you go, right? Because you don't know how to navigate in your reality effectively, because you don't understand that you have these cassette tapes going on. And so as a result, you have a twin flame union and you're like drawn to your twin, but then it seems like something else is in the way always. Maybe it's another person. Maybe it's a family. Maybe it's a spouse. Maybe it's a karmic. Maybe it's a soulmate. Maybe it's a child. There's somebody that's telling you, you can't feel the way that you feel. You're not supposed to feel that way because it makes me feel this other way. And because you don't have boundaries and you're afraid of being seen and you don't know how to use your voice, you just collapse. You collapse to somebody else's shadow because they're afraid of letting you go, because they're afraid of confronting the truth about how they feel about themselves when you walk away. When you live your life for you, that makes them feel something about themselves. And perhaps this is a deep-seated wound from their childhood that is not actually true, because maybe you do love them, but you need to restructure the relationship because both of you are unhappy and have been knowingly unhappy for decades of your life. I literally talk to people that have been married for decades that know that they're unhappy, that one of them meets a twin flame and they want out and they're trying to renegotiate their relationship. And all of a sudden their karmic, their soulmate, whoever it is like, you can't leave. I know I've not touched you in 20 years. I know I've been rejecting you this entire time, but you can't leave. What am I going to do? Where am I going to find another roommate? No, just kidding. I don't want another roommate. I want you back passionately. So then they passionately rekindle. And then what happens 20 years later? Are they in the same conversation again? Well, it depends. That's where it gets a little tricky. So this is one of the keys of being able to sustain a twin flame union, is that you have to understand what your karmic patterns and your lessons are. You have to understand what the union experience is about. It's about transformation. And you can stay as a smaller version of you in your life for the rest of your life. You can stay locked into a relationship that you feel is a karmic duty that somehow you don't remember signing up for, but you know it's not a right fit for anybody. You know that you'd be better off as co-parents or as friends or restructuring the relationship, but you don't know how to get there. And you're afraid of helping them to confront the deep-seated wounds that they need to that they've actually been hiding behind by your implicit agreement and tacit approval of a relationship that doesn't actually work for you. And so when you understand these patterns and what is keeping you locked in, you understand that it's actually quite simple. It's actually really simple. All you have to do is to stand in your truth. All you have to do is to have a conversation and say, actually, this doesn't work for me. I need this. And if they don't listen, then you put boundaries up. What does that look like? It means initiating that thing, a separation, a divorce, a meeting with an attorney, if you're not heard. It means moving forward with what you need if you don't get the agreement, because that's what's right, if that's actually what's right. It means saying no to using children as pawns or tools or weapons in a divorce or a settlement. It means saying this is not acceptable behavior, and enlisting support and help from your community in order to set things correct for everybody. So when you are afraid of being seen, what this looks like is you are afraid of speaking your truest desires. And I work with people, especially anxious attachers, that struggle with this because they want to mold themselves to their partner because that's how they feel safe. And they learned early on that speaking their needs was often too much or rejected or in some cases punished. And so as a result, they hide what they really want. They hide how they're really feeling. It does come out. They know that, right? But they become a reflection of what their partner wants. They become almost, hi Tara love, almost an expression of a mirage. That's how I see it. It's like there's a mirage of an illusion of who you think that you're supposed to be. And then you become that in your relationship when you have something like an insecure attachment style. And when you're afraid of truly being seen for who you are afraid of actually expressing what you really want. And what this looks like is that you feel it's safer to express what you think your partner wants. And so they'll say something very simple like, I think that we should go here on vacation. And you might have a reaction inside that's like, oh, I really wanted to go to this other place, or, oh, I really don't like the beach. But instead of actually saying that, what you do is that you smile and you say, oh, honey, I think that's a great idea. Let's definitely go there. And then you go and you have a time, meaning you smile, you go through the motions, and you're sad perhaps inside because you really wanted to go to this other place. And you thought like you did a really good job because maybe a year before, 2 years before, you said, hey, I really want to go to this other place. And your partner said, yeah, we can think about it. We can definitely plan for that. And then when it comes around, then you have a heart to heart with them. So you think, and they're planning where they want to go. And when you are afraid of being seen and you don't know how to navigate your voice and your boundaries, and you pretend and you make yourself a mirage, then you create a relationship where you start to feel invisible, where you start to feel like your needs aren't cared for and they don't matter. And while you're locked into that relationship, participating and going along and smiling, your partner might actually not be very attuned to how you really feel inside, particularly if they also have an insecure attachment style. And so as a result, you can feel like you're locked into a relationship with them for a very long time that you feel deeply unhappy, and they're surprised because they don't have any attunement to your internal world. And because they are paying attention to the surface levels, like, yes, you're smiling, but they don't know that it's a fake smile necessarily. They don't see that your heart is in another place. And so what happens is you'll meet a twin flame that will disrupt your entire life. It will shake you out of that paradigm, because that's a very stable paradigm that you don't necessarily, from a higher position of consciousness and awareness, know that you are manufacturing this reality for yourself that is an illusion, because you're afraid of being seen, and you're afraid of using your true voice. You're afraid perhaps because you have codependent patterns, because you were taught at a young age that you couldn't say no, that you had to have weak boundaries in order to earn love. And so you see how all of these in that situation, cassettes are then playing out. You have programming in your mind that is communicating to you that it's not safe to be you, that it's not safe to just be loved for who you are, that you have to perform to be loved, that you have to be a mirage, an illusion, because that's the only way that you receive love. And you can persist because this is a love map, right? I call it a love map because it's like your map of how human relationships are supposed to be were installed in you from a very young age. And when you have a love map like that, you can go your whole life married, not ever questioning the paradigm, because this is all you've ever known. You can think it's absolutely normal to be in a relationship with a covert narcissist and them treating you horribly and saying very destructive things. For what reason? For what reason, really? And when your love map is that you have to accept that in order to receive love, care, and attention, what you're doing is you're preferentially aligning yourself and your relationships to be unaligned with you. As long as you're playing the game, as long as you're playing the role that they approve of, then they'll give you a little bit here and there. They'll give you some breadcrumbs, but they're not going to give you the true love experience like a twin flame is. So a twin flame is going to come in, and you might be married. You might have been married for a really long time. And they're going to rock your world. They're going to turn it upside down. And they're going to make you question everything. What is love? Really? What is alignment? Who do I really want in my sphere? And while you're reconciling this, you're going to feel that pull and that magnetism, and your twin is going to be mirroring you in their own cassettes, in their own ways. And some of their cassettes may be similar to yours. They might also be afraid of intimacy and truly being seen. And so when they really open up vulnerably, they get scared and they start running or pulling back because they fear. They maybe learn from early childhood that humans couldn't be trusted when you showed your true self. And so they learned that they had to run or withdraw or to dismiss the connection because that's what made it safer. And so they might open up and close up, open up and close up. And they might also fear that they have to earn your love. And so they also start performing. And you might get the sense that you're attracted to somebody who on the surface is different than the person that you're really attracted to. But it's almost like they have a layer or a mask on that all they have to do is take it off. And if you could just take it off, you both could see each other so clearly. And maybe you get glimpses of this in your physical union, where it's like there's moments that like both of you peek through and you're like, this is love. This is something else entirely. I don't know if I even have a word for it. This is what the twin flame journey teaches you, okay? It teaches you all of the layers of the false self that are on you, all of the hooks and the energy barbs that are in you that are actually not serving you, all of the ways that you perform, that you are an illusion, that love is an illusion, the ways that you prioritize keeping some people in your life that want to destroy you versus actually want to lift you up in a positive, nurturing community, in a soul sister, soul brother, soul them, not otherwise specified way, you know? And people who do that, do you really want to cater to them? Really? When you are in karmic cycles, you do, because you're afraid, oh, if somebody rejects me, what does it mean about who I am? I must not be very good. I must be, oh my gosh, oh no. But when you are actually in the fullest expression of you, you understand that when people, love partners, community people, people of the cloth, when they are an illusion and you see their shadow and you understand what they're actually offering you, you don't fear their rejection anymore. You actually welcome it because it shows you versus them. And that contrast experience allows you to align with the people who are actually meant for you. And some of you are living in lives that are so full of gunk, so full of these karmic webs that are keeping you locked in to the smallest version of you because you are afraid of rejection by the wrong people. You are afraid of letting go and stepping into the unknown. So when you come into this union and you feel that your souls are talking to each other, but then there's this mask that comes back, or they start ghosting, or you start getting scared and you start pulling away, right? All of the patterns come up. What happens is the vibration of that connection starts to dissipate and the magnetism shifts and you can't hold the union anymore. And when you can't hold the union, that's when you experience things like separation. And perhaps it's your nervous system that can't hold it, because when you are actually in the presence of a genuine soul partner, they will see right through you. They're going to see through the chaos of your mind, the wounds. They're going to see your insecurities, even if they're unspoken. They're going to see your behavior, and they're going to understand that some of it is not the real you, like the soulful you. Obviously, it's you, but there's patterns and conditions that you were raised with. So I'm going to take some questions. 2 for 1, mine acts like a demonic entity. That's funny because there are actually, and thank you for your gifts. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. I am happy to answer them. Yes, so there are actually different flavors of the twin flame journey because it's about the octave of frequency. So if somebody is in very, very shadow toxic love, they can have more narcissistic tendencies, borderline personality disorder issues, other personality disorders. They could be more verging on the neglect side and the violent side in some cases. And it can feel more like a trauma bond. And the truth is, when you are doing the work, you're no longer attracted to what is resolved inside of you. So if you're attracted to somebody that feels like a trauma bond, it's because you still have trauma maps inside of you, and you're choosing that love out of the whole spectrum of love. Your soul is choosing that. You are choosing that because you say yes to that person, right? With all the red flags that you see all along the way, you're the one that consents. You consent every single time, every date, every time they cross a boundary, they cross a threshold. Every time your intuition tells you that something's wrong, you're actually consenting when you get back in bed with them. You're consenting when you forgive them, when you don't have boundaries. And so you keep saying yes and you keep saying yes. And so you're going to have trauma play out. But when you really heal, you're going to start saying no. That's what my True Love Masterminds group helps you with. By the way, if you want help with your journey, I do have a special right now in my school community. The link is in the bio. You can save $15 a month just for the duration of this live. And every month we have modules that teaches you how to come into union and stabilize it. It's not just for that. It's about the true love experience. So even if you're not on a twin flame journey, you're welcome there. But it's tailored to help people clear the karmic wounds and the scripts that are holding them from being able to sustain a vibration of true love. So we just talked about authentic communication, and I gave you a roadmap and a clear understanding in this last month's masterclass of how to authentically express yourself and who struggles with it the most based on their insecure attachment style and why. And most importantly, how to fix it. So you get an exercise and a practice sheet to actually implement change in your life. That's my True Love Masterminds group. That's one masterclass out of 15 entirely. So you can binge watch and find the cassette tapes that correspond to your block of union. And you can do that work on your own. You can receive help from me and support on your journey in our private forum. So that is a recurring monthly charge that is normally 120 USD, but if you sign up during this live, it's 105 USD. And you can come and go as you please and work at your own pace. Link is in the bio for that. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say about the octaves of the twin flame connection is that once you resolve those trauma scripts, you will literally no longer be attracted to people like that again. And then you're going to start being magnetized, because imagine that in your auric field, you resolve this fear of being seen cassette tape, and we just take it out entirely. And to do this, you actually have to resolve using your voice, right? So you finally master the fear of being seen, but you're still practicing how to use your voice. So the fear of being seen cassette tape is gone, but then you have to demonstrate to the universe that you're ready for another level manifestation. So you're going to get choices, and you're going to get karmics and soulmate relationships, one of which is going to entice you back to the past. It might actually be the past ex. It might be the old twin flame, the shadow twin flame. It might be somebody different. And you're going to be in a situation where you actually have to choose differently. All right. And when you do that and you master that, then this changes this panel of cassette tapes. And so it takes them out of your auric field, and then your vibration changes, right? It's a reordering. You replace these tapes with things like authenticity and ability of being seen. That's going to change your entire calibration. So then the partners that you attract and that you are attracted to, because you're no longer going to be attracted to people who have those corresponding cassette tape lessons, changes. That's the beauty of the octaves of the twin flame journey, is that when you really understand that everything is vibration and it's on a scale of frequency, and when you're in the shadow twin flame and you finally master those lessons, it's like emerging out of hell. You actually get to choose from a quote unquote normal twin flame that's in the octave ranges. And I talk about this more and give you a diagram. Thank you for the gifts in my True Love Masterminds group, so you can see this a little more clearly. But you actually get a different twin flame experience, either with the shadow twin, if they actually leveled up with you, or with a new one. And you might be one of the candidates that have a second twin flame. I often see people have a second twin flame when they start in the shadow twin flame octave, and they have to master things like trauma bonding and boundaries and self-love and self-respect and authenticity and personal power. And very often they're with people that don't change. So they're supposed to say no. And their twin flame connection awakens them through the dark night of the soul as a very powerful journey, and can bring on their spiritual gifts. And it can be a guided, very intense journey. There are different flavors of the twin flame journey. And so as a result, when they master that level, they go to a new level, just like there's a divine ray union after the traditional twin flame journey. So when you master the karmic lessons that are not like trauma bonding, but are still like insecure attachment style and of being afraid of being seen and having to earn love and codependency and all sorts of patterns, unavailable love, it ranges the entire spectrum, but it's not necessarily going to send anybody into prison, or it's not necessarily going to end up in stalking or other dangerous situations, because there's a level of behavioral, like the people behave differently depending on like what frequency they're in, right? Depending on what frequency and octave, you behave differently. And so when you enter into the traditional twin flame journey, you don't have to worry about what people in the shadow twin flame journey worry about. But you still have lessons that you're working on. And after you resolve those lessons, and you go into the divine ray union. But to get to the divine ray union, to even get a glimpse of that and to stabilize that, requires you to work through these karmic cycles. So understanding that, hi Eva, thank you, helps you to understand how to navigate the ascension process, because that's what ascension is. You are literally ascending through the different frequencies and the vibrations. And when you ascend that frequency, your cassettes, if you will, your lessons, your vibrational field, what you're carrying with you as karmic loops and lessons that you're offering to another person and they're offering to you, when it's a match, that's when you feel the magnetism. That's what the magnetism is. And when you understand that you have these lessons that you're working on, and you understand that a karmic is helping you to work on one of these lessons, like earning love, for example, and breaking that, like just being loved for who you are. When you don't believe that you can be loved for who you are, and you have a twin flame that's trying to just love you for who you are, you don't have to do anything. They just want to give and give. You don't accept it. That's the sneaky, insidious thing about the mind and these love maps. You actually don't accept. You feel like there's something wrong. There's either something wrong with them or something wrong with the relationship, because how could they just love me for who I am? I must have to earn it. I must have to perform. I must have to demonstrate how much wealth I have or how much abundance I have, or I have to do this first or that first, and I have to get my life in order, because how could they possibly love me for just me. And so you'll go to a karmic to help you resolve that. And if you don't resolve that, then you'll be drawn to your twin, but you won't be able to stabilize the union, or you'll stay in a semi-permanent separation. Thank you for the follows. Thank you also for the likes. Let's see who else has questions. Okay. Let's see. Yes, Vulcan, ForgeWorks. I just got out of 6 years with an avoidant. What a ride. Yes. If you're choosing avoidance, it's because you have a pattern inside of you. Once you understand and resolve that pattern, you are literally no longer attracted to avoidance. You can sniff them out from a mile away. And when they start to avoid in the early parts of the relationship, like people say that they're tricked, no, avoidance always tell you who they are. They always do. Even when they're showing up and they are attending to you and it looks like they're not avoidant, they actually are. If you try to talk to them about their past, if you try to talk to them about how they're really feeling, it's like if you try to talk to them about your needs, if you try to talk to them about conflict, it's going to come out, even if they're pretending and even if they're on the surface pretending to be more healed, you're always going to tell an avoidant. It's really easy once you understand what you're looking for. And so when you're attracted to avoidance, you're often perpetually attracted to avoidance. And so this is why people go from avoidant to avoidant to avoidant to avoidant, because they're learning something about themselves. And when you understand what that is, then you don't have to repeat the cycle. And so 6 years with an avoidant, what a ride. I hope that you were learning what you got there to learn. And very often with avoidance, it's about self-love and self-respect. But there are other lessons. It can also be about personal power, and it can be about boundaries, and it can be about authenticity. So just being you and not lowering your standards and understanding what you actually want and need and prioritizing that, and saying no to an avoidant is often the way out of avoidant relationships. And they can really do a number. They can actually do a number on your self-esteem. If you let them, you don't have to let them, but you can really feel very drained after a long run with an avoidant. Oh, so 2 for 1. Mine is a cult and I'm Muslim. I'm scared we won't be together. Yes, so you see these differences in spiritual frameworks because it's teaching you something about your attachment and your twin to what you believe is right, to what you believe is correct. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I have obviously my personal opinions, but I feel that just like when there's a big age gap of twin flames, it's teaching people what love really is. Like, it's not a matter of, okay, we're within 5 years of each other and we can have a beautiful life together. That's not love, that's strategy. And there's attraction at different levels, and you can be attracted to people physically, and you can be attracted to people from the mind and from the heart and even from the body. But when you're talking about a spiritual connection, it'll throw all of what you think is correct out of the window, depending on what you need support with. So you may not be able to be together unless one or both of you comes and understands what love truly is for you, and you're able to respect each other's beliefs, right? And love them unconditionally and support and nurture them without taking that away or threatening them or abandoning them in some way because they don't believe what you perhaps think is right. I'm not saying this is your story, but when you see the cultural, spiritual framework differences, it's often because there is this dogma that is entrenched, like this is the right way, this is the correct way, this is how I see the world, and the twin flame journey might be helping you to expand beyond that. Okay, Jackie Bard, I have someone who's coming out of my way for over 20 years. I don't know if they are, I think, for me. Who's been coming out of my way. I don't really understand the question. So it sounds like maybe someone's going out of their way to maybe pursue you and you're not sure if they're right for you or not. Feel free to clarify this in the chat. But what I would say is, if I'm correct in reading that there is an intuition piece. So when you're trying to figure it out with your mind, the mind's always it's not always, but it has a high propensity, high GC of confusing you. And so when you're thinking about it versus feeling it or using your intuition or your body, or better yet, using all of those systems because they all give you information, then you can come to a holistic decision about whether somebody's right for you versus whether or not you think somebody's right for you or you feel somebody's right for you. You see what I mean? It's you have intelligences in your body, in your heart, in your spirit, and in your mind. And you want to use the right intelligences to make sure that you are deciding appropriately what is in alignment for you. And if you need help with this, then I have a podcast on Spotify called Awakening with Dr. C, where I talk about alignment and how to understand resonance and frequency and vibration from an energetic perspective, but also understanding from the mind, like who you say yes to really matters. And if you're saying yes to somebody that your body is kind of giving you an ick feeling, then there's an intelligence there that you're not listening to. And intuition happens through the body. And if you have a visceral yuck reaction or a feeling like something isn't right, even if they are being very generous or gracious or going out of their way for, and it could be, a long pursuit, you need to listen to all of those intelligences because they're trying to tell you something that your mind doesn't know. And you can offset a lot of the painful lessons by listening to things like your intuition and understanding what's a red flag, what's a yellow flag, and what's a green flag. You can actually, in manifested worlds, if you imagine that you have 3 doors available to you and you start going through one because somebody's coming up to the other side of the door and they're like, date me, let's go out, let's do this. And they're going out of the way. And maybe they're like, I traveled from a very long way away just to see you. And you're like, well, I feel kind of obligated because they went so far out of their way just to see me. And you start spending time with them and your body is giving you like nope, turn around. First, it actually whispers. It'll be like, no, don't. Ooh, I don't think so. No. And you keep going. You are effectively walking in that corridor. And your body, that intelligence system might be telling you that you're going to a pretty nasty ending and a dead end. But if you're not listening and you keep consenting and you keep consenting and you keep consenting, you're actually going further and further down that hallway. Intuition is the ability to understand what's at the end of that corridor without you having to be there right in person to see it. And when your intuition is giving you danger signals, I'm not saying that this is your case, Jackie, but somebody needs to hear this. When your intuition is giving you danger signals, it's going to do so subtly and through the body. So being aware of what your somatic intelligence is telling you is very, very key. And when you are synchronizing all of those bits of information, you are better at evaluating and deciding whether or not to go through that door. And then the only person's responsibility is yours for whether or not you say yes and choose door number 3 versus door number 1 or door number 2. So be very careful when you have a situation that you're kind of feeling like, I don't know. Be sure you understand how you're really deciding and what's really in alignment with you. And be sure you're utilizing all of the bits of information and knowledge, particularly if you are on the spiritual awakening journey. You have resources of information and energy available to you that people who are not awake don't have. So be sure that you're integrating and utilizing that information. Okay. All right, 2 for 1. And they are a celeb who at one point wanted me dead. Well, I can't comment on that because I don't have that information. How do I forgive him if he acts nonchalant? Yes, and thank you for your gifts, by the way. So there is a feature of the mind that I like to talk about a lot, but if you're new on my channel, you might not have heard this. But our mind has what's called a narrator function or a narrative function, and also a projection system. And what this means effectively is that you have a way of interpreting the world through your sensory system and all of the perceptual information that's coming in, right? This is all going to your brain to be processed. And you also have opinions, beliefs, and programs and lenses that you filter that stimuli from and through, So you're filtering all of the sensory information into your mind which then has another filter on top of it of stories and patterns and wounds. And when you're not awake to this and cognizant of this, then you can get lost in narratives that may or may not actually be true and agreeing with objective reality. And this is what projections are. So another way to think of this is when you are seeing somebody, like a relationship partner, cheat on you, and they're not, but you believe that they are because you're afraid of that, because there's a story in your mind that they don't really love you. They must be looking somewhere else because you're feeling insecure or unworthy because you have these cassette tapes playing out on loops. Then what's going to happen is you're going to start viewing their behavior in a certain way. Now, 2-for-1, I'm not saying you're doing this, but because I don't know what celebrity you're talking about and what beef you're talking about, but what I do know is that you're receiving information that your reality is not concurring with the story in your mind. He's acting nonchalant. So there is a disconnect in the feedback that you're receiving from the external world and the narrative that you have in your mind. And whether or not this celebrity has knowledge of you, is interested in you, I have no idea. But when I see a disconnect between the narrative in the mind and the objective reality, that's when I need to teach about this effect in the mind. Because if you don't know that, you could potentially get lost in your own narratives. Like, how many relationships have been ruined from people accusing their partners of cheating and escalating behaviors and suspicion and paranoia and following them and stalking them and doing all sorts of crazy stuff because they were absolutely scared deep down inside to be loved. And instead of dealing with those wounds, they projected it outward and started mapping that onto their relationship space, onto their relationship partner with a filter. It's like putting on glasses. And then seeing their behavior, like, why are you dressed that way? Who are you trying to entice? Why are you talking to that friend? Why are you doing this? Why are you? Eventually, over time, a healthy person, an actual healthy person, is going to put up boundaries and walk away from that relationship. And so that disconnect between the fear and the story in the mind, actually placed on an external world, forced on your relationship partner, is self-sabotage. And when you don't understand that's happening, you know what happens? You go into another relationship where you do the same thing. And instead of asking yourself, why am I following the same pattern? Why am I following into this? Why do I feel the need to install spyware on my partner's phone? Why do I feel the need to? When you start to examine yourself, you start to understand that maybe there's something inside of you that is leading to the severing and the breakdown of these relationships. So for you, 2-for-1, I'm bringing this to your attention to let you know that you're not alone if this is happening to you. But when you're receiving information that your external world is not agreeing with you, that is a time to ask the very important question: is reality actually working the way I believe it is in my mind? Or am I lost in my own projection system? Am I lost in my own narrative? Because what you're going to find is that when you are lost in that, you're going to alienate yourself from opportunities and people and situations and things. You're going to end up in a manifested world that is going to be very uncomfortable for you, some of which includes incarceration and prison. So be careful, because when you're actually lost in your mind, or even hospitalization, when you're really lost in a narrative structure and you're not responding to how reality is agreeing with you, then your actions and your reactions are out of step and out of alignment, and you get put away for that. So you have to be very mindful about what's really going on. So just be cautious, okay? Mastery of the mind is incredibly important, and especially so when you're doing anything like quantum shifting. And this is what I talk about in my EC by Dr. C, my esoteric playlist, where I talk about shifting realities in the flesh, not just a meditation. And I give you advanced practices. It's not really practices. I give you advanced conversations and monologues about how to do this and how to think about this to understand the nature of your mind and how you're constructing your external reality. And when it doesn't agree with you, we're going to talk about that one. And you're quantum shifting. You know you're a quantum shifter, but when reality is not agreeing with you, what do you do? That's what we talk about in my EC by Dr. C, but this is a private playlist. The link is in the bio. It's the top list of my Stand store, $10 a month. You get access to the vault of recordings, which is ongoing. It's brand new. You can be like the founding member, and you also get meditations delivered to your inbox. I already have a couple of founding members. Thank you for your support and helping me to produce this work. The last meditation was the White Room meditation, a quantum meditation that allows you to actually get a quantum breadcrumb from your future self by going into this white room and receiving a download. So if you're interested in that, check the Stand store. The top link, EC by Dr. C, is a private playlist. You get access to the vault and also monthly meditations sent directly to your inbox. What other questions do we have? Oh, Thelma, I love when there is congruency and synchronicity. Thank you, everybody, for your follows. I love it. Okay, let's see. Who else do we have? Can a new partner be a workplace? I don't understand your question. Can a new partner be in a workplace? Absolutely. You can meet a twin flame anywhere. Yes, I agree, Lionel. We meet them anywhere. Okay, so union 111, how does inner-outer union look like? Wonderful question. I can tell you what my belief is. To come into a self-union means you have to integrate the masculine and the feminine. So when you're early in the twin flame journey, I just made some pieces about this. You can check my channel, my TikTok channel, where I posted about this. When you are early in the journey, you're in polarity consciousness because you're coming through the three-dimensional consciousness. So these cassette tapes here, right? You can imagine that there are other cassette tapes, and three-dimensional consciousness is believing that you are incomplete, that you are half, that your soul is split and is in another body. A lot of people resonate with this story early on in the twin flame journey. I certainly did. And so as a result, when you meet your twin, the vibration is such that they're also in three-dimensional consciousness. And you identify as the feminine or the masculine. It's not gender specific. Gay people, queer people can have twin flames. So it's not about your gender. It's not about your sexual orientation. And you feel this sense of vibrational completeness. That's why, we talk about that story that way, because that's literally how it feels. It literally feels like your soul is being put back together. And so when you're in polarity consciousness and you're identifying as masculine or the feminine, you're also in other aspects of three-dimensional love constructs. The goal of the ascension journey is to break out of those. And for many people, the goal is actually to break out of them with their twin. But some people, like myself, actually had to go into separation to come into union with the self first. And when we come into inner union, it is about realizing that we are not incomplete, that we are actually whole, and that we have both energy fragments inside of us. And we can switch in between, and we feel like we don't need any twin flame experience. Like I used to think that I had to have the twin flame experience because it awakened me energetically. So I had this scarcity belief mindset that told me that, well, I want to continue my gifts and my abilities that are opening up. And so I have to have the twin flame experience. We can't go into separation. Like, how am I going to keep growing? And when I started focusing on myself, I realized that my gifts kept opening up and expanding. That's when I discovered quantum shifting. Hello, as a neuroscientist, that is amazing to discover. And my spiritual journey continued to deepen and deepen and deepen without my twin. And so what happened for me is that my energy started being housed completely in my body, whereas I needed activation from crystals. I needed activation from my twin because I didn't know how to be an energetic being, a sovereign being, right? And so as I've come into union with myself, what this has looked like is not needing somebody or an outside force to complete me or to bring me to wholeness or deliverance, because I myself have done that within. And so that's the main difference of coming into union with yourself, where you don't identify as a pole anymore. I don't identify as a divine masculine or a divine feminine. It depends. It depends on the situation and the day. Right now, I'm very much in my masculine, but I've spent a lot of time in my feminine. And when you switch energies and you integrate those energies, it's like a dance. And you're no longer putting people in boxes and saying, well, if you're my twin, you better be the divine masculine. And I've learned that the divine masculine is always the runner. Not technically. Actually, both are the runners, but it depends on who is leaning out of the connection versus who is trying to lean in. But you're actually both afraid of love. That's why it switches. I said that earlier in the live. For those of you who've been here the whole time, we're circling back a little bit, but literally, that's why the runner becomes the chaser, because you're both actually afraid of love. It's how you're expressing that love and that vulnerability and leaning out versus leaning in that changes whether or not you can come into an outer union. So an outer union is like taking that vortex of energy that is inside of you and inside your twin. When you are complete, it's coming together and it's a very stable union, but it's also one of non-attachment. So if they need to go to a karmic to work on, let's say, being afraid of intimacy or earning love, then you let them go to do that because you understand the higher purpose of everything. And you're like, please, you have my blessing. You know, I don't want to get into the muck if I don't have those lessons. If I do have those lessons, then please, let's do it. It's the fastest way to work through these. Oh, thank you so much for the gift. I appreciate it. It's the fastest way to work through these cycles and to work with your twin, in my personal opinion. But sometimes if there's an imbalance in like the remaining lessons, like the cassette tapes here on this image, like if you've already solved these, but they have a couple of these left, then what's going to happen is that they are going to have to go and work with a karmic because you're not going to be able to work through that with them. So that's why sometimes they have to go to a karmic. But when you are in abandonment wounds and rejection wounds, you hold on with very strong attachment, and that feels very painful because you're like, I can't be rejected. I can't be on my own. I can't do this. I can't come into union by myself because like that's the most painful thing in the world. But when you really step into the vibration of self-love and self-union, then it's an entirely different conversation. So that's why it's an ascension through consciousness. And you actually have to understand what's holding you down in three-dimensional consciousness and the stories that you are adhering to, the narrative structures in your mind to explain your journey, which may or may not be accurate for your particular situation. If you want a consult, you can book a one-on-one consult with me and I can talk you through your twin flame journey and the obstacles that you might have, identify your patterns, your wounds, the next steps. If you need help leaving a karmic relationship, I also give you guidance on that. And you can do so by booking the link in the bio. Okay, Becky, my twin is avoidant unless I reopen emotionally to my avoidant ex-husband. Yes. Oh, I understand what you're saying, Becky. This is a great example of this. I love that you brought this up because this is what happens when there is a triangulation energy is that you ever notice how avoidance don't actually want you to leave? Like when you actually start to leave, all of a sudden they display their affection, right? It's like the runner becomes the chaser for a moment and then everything stabilizes, right? You see, tell me you see that, right? So what happens in a twin flame union is that there are energetic bonds, usually between the soul partners, so the spouses, sometimes the children, and the twins. And even, people who've never met each other, there are energetic bonds. And so when you're thinking of a twin flame union, you actually have to factor in all of the people. It's like a web, a karmic web, and you're brought together in this stabilization of energy and you're locked in until one of you starts to shift the pattern. And then when you shift the pattern, it shifts all of the energy in the field, which is why when you start leaning in to your twin flame experience and you're married, then your spouse will start responding. Even if they don't know, they'll start intuiting, they'll start feeling, and they'll start sometimes pulling you back, sometimes fighting for the first time in years. They'll suddenly get like a breath of fresh passion, and sometimes they'll want to re-engage. It might be a dying, almost dead relationship, a stagnant relationship, and they want to revitalize it because energetically they can feel you shifting. And in your case, Becky, what you're talking about, my twin is avoidant unless I reopen emotionally to my avoidant ex-husband. You start shifting that energetic bond back to your husband, which shifts the pull on your avoidant twin. And notice how you are with two avoidants. So you have a pattern. And it's worthwhile for you to understand why you're preferentially attracting avoidance and choosing avoidance. That's deep inner work that I encourage you to work on, either with yourself. You can hire somebody like me, join my True Love Masterminds group. I have a special right now. If you join during the live, you save $15 a month. So the link is in the bio for my school community, True Love Masterminds. But you need to do that personal work because you're just going to repeat the karmic cycle even with your twin. So when you start shifting that energetic line, your twin, your spouse, they all feel it. Whether or not they're cognizant and awake to it and conscious of it is a different story. But people actually feel it and respond. It's beautiful when you understand the energy dynamics of consciousness and of souls. Okay, who else do we have? Thank you for sharing the live, Eva. I appreciate it. Oh, and thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, VTech. I mess up with someone who I believe is my soulmate. I want them back, but I struggle to see her. Let me see if you continued that. And Mello, I'm going to get to yours in just a moment. Okay, so what I see is I messed up with somebody who I believe is my soulmate. I want them back. So what you're talking about is repairing. And I don't know what you did, if it's repairable or not. But I want to tell you that people who are healthy will have boundaries. And if you step over a line that is a boundary for them, it may not be repairable. And at some point, you need to come to terms with that. And you need to accept that and do your personal work to not repeat that same mistake, whatever it was. But for a lot of people, if you haven't crossed that line, then you will be able to repair, but it's going to need to be on their terms. So you need to feel out the timing of when you can approach for a conversation, because they might need time to understand how they're feeling to be able to communicate and repair it to you. So don't rush that process. If you feel that it's repairable, then it's worthwhile to repair by writing like a heartfelt letter that expresses how you really feel. And then when the time is right, to give them that letter, but only when your soul and your intuition tells you that that time is right. Because if you give it too early or too late, it may not have the same effect. So you want the vibration of the letter to be very, very potent with the core, highest truth that you are trying to emit. That's my recommendation for you. Okay, so jumping to Mello, any guidance on maintaining focus on detachment from a fearful, avoidant ex and helping with healing? Yes, self-work is the way to go, and self-love. So it's really, fearful avoidants are extremely complex. As you know, most of you know, if you're working with one, loving one, it's like rehabilitating a human. And they go through these periods where they are overwhelmed or they're highly, highly triggered, and you can't do anything. Any like attempts to try to salvage the relationship, to bring them back is like the worst thing you can do. So when your fearful avoidant is taking their time, what you want to do, if you're still in the relationship and you're trying to cultivate safety, remember that's the goal of working with a fearful avoidant, is that you want to be safe. You don't want to go and track them down, stalk them, talk to their friends and their family, because that makes you not safe. If they need space, because a lot of them were raised in family situations where people took too much, where they didn't have privacy, they didn't have the ability to say no with their caregivers, they didn't have the right to feel the way that they felt. So they're very sensitive to anybody stepping on their boundaries and anybody stepping in their space. And they can really react in a very, very negative way that is avoidable if you understand this. So if you imagine that you are trying to become the safe person for them, then you let them have their space and you see their space. Hi, oh, I thought you were somebody else. Sorry. You see their space as a way that you're actually helping to heal them by giving them the safety that they need in order to come back. Now, the tricky thing is that sometimes, depending on the fearful avoidant and the situation, they may not come back. They might go to another person. They could be in like an addiction type cycle, or a destructive cycle. And if they do come back, they could be bringing like a nightmare with them. So you want to be very mindful that you're actually really heart-centered and aligned when you make this decision, because when you are creating safety for a fearful avoidant and you are deepening that connection, you want to be sure that you're actually going to be able to sustain the relationship when they come back. So be sure that you understand your boundaries and understand what's acceptable and not acceptable, and if their behavior is actually acceptable to you. And if it is, then imagining that you're creating safety by nurturing and loving yourself and working on your own sense of independence, your own self-love, like whatever love you would give them, do it for yourself. Whatever gift you would buy them that gift, and also one for yourself, assuming you can, of course. And so put that energy back into you, and that should help you. Okay, so let's see. Can a new partner be in a relationship that you're experiencing in a workplace and through community, aka a relationship with many within a workplace? It's like you don't need a romantic partner, so the community provides you with the lessons. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. I'm not quite sure I'm really understanding the dynamics, but people can be in pseudo relationships, like they have work husbands and work wives, without actually being in a deep relationship. And sometimes that can be a fear of intimacy and intimacy avoidance, that they outsource their connections with other people and avoid actually getting in a high stakes relationship. I don't know exactly if that's what you're saying. I'm reading a little quickly, but that would be what I would say. Okay, so Zamira, thank you. I've been following you for a while now, and I want to thank you for everything you share with us. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I like finding the people who resonate with my teachings. This has been years in the making. Mr. Raul, greetings from New Jersey restaurant Patsy's. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Okay, Eva, is there more than one twin flame? Sometimes, yes. Yes, there is, but not for everybody. And it depends on your twin flame journey. And I cover this in some of the content streams. I have a whole playlist on TikTok about soul contracts where I talk about this more in depth that you're welcome to check out. If you don't know where the playlists are, go to my profile. So click on my little bubble. Right in my bio, underneath like the Stand Store link, that if you were to check out some of my services or offers, then underneath that is the playlist tab right above my content, and you can see tons of videos that I've made about twin flames. Okay. Yes, my husband has anxious attachment, and I think my twin is fearful, avoidant, or disorganized attachment. They are very, very complex. It probably means that you have some attachment style issues too. If you are drawn to insecure attachment styles, you likely have something that you're learning from them. If you don't know, I have a free attachment style test. The link is in the bio. And I send an email out every Friday along with my twin flames list, teaching you about attachment styles and how to understand them and to work with them. But it's very complex. Very, very complex. Okay, who else? Thank you, Gabriella. I appreciate that. Okay, Ala Bisabi. What happens if your twin never does the work? This is a personal opinion. Some people disagree with me, but remember, I now have been facilitating for how many years? Two and a half years. And so I've spoken to numerous people on the twin flame journey. This is like specific to twin flames. I've been coaching for even longer than that. But I started out in gifted and talented neurodivergent coaching. So, and then reality shifting coaching. And then I moved to twin flame coaching. It's actually all the same. It's different, but it's, if you know, you know. Like it's kind of interlinked at the same time. Okay, so what happens if your twin never does the work? My personal opinion is that if your twin doesn't actually do the work, there's a period of time that during your soul contract you come together. There's a magnetism and there's a window of opportunity. Thank you. I appreciate the gift. There's a window of opportunity. And during that window, there is a period of consent. And this window could be long, it could be short. I didn't make, the rules. This is what I've sort of figured out from my experience and also other people's experiences. But there are some people, some twins that actually use their free will to say no to the journey. And not only that, they go out of their way to destroy the connection. And when they destroy the connection, that is effectively telling the universe, I don't want this, I'm going to destroy this. This is usually people in the shadow love octave. Most people on a twin flame journey are not going to do this, but people with like very destructive love maps where they're, to get rid of people, they burn bridges, or they, turn us against them, me against them, they villainize them, they take them down from the pedestal. These are like the lower octave of the twin flame journey. Most people don't have to worry about that. But I often see it there where there will be twins who are deeply frightened of the journey and they say no every chance they can get and they destroy the connection. And so the universe is not going to hold you back. The universe, source consciousness, as an abundant energy, right? It's not going to say, well, I'm sorry, you don't have a twin that's participating in this life, so you're going to have to be stalled on your ascension journey. In my experience, no. The scarcity mindset of the twin flame stories that is espoused in our culture is predominantly human-based, in my personal opinion. And it's coming from three-dimensional consciousness. Because when you start to evolve into a different state of consciousness, a frequency of consciousness, you see the scarcity mindset, and you see how it's a consciousness trap. For a lot of people, it's a consciousness trap. It doesn't have to be, but it is when you're working with an unavailable twin flame partner that is saying no and you're waiting for them endlessly. You can do that. You can actually wait for your twin for eternity. You can literally, that might be your twin flame journey. That's a lesson in of itself. Choosing yourself and understanding when somebody's not coming. You can wait at the bus stop for years. You can be a homeless person on the bus stop bench, sleeping there, waiting for your twin to come back on the bus. And you could die there. And then next life, you could do it all over again. And you can stand outside and say, but there is only one twin flame and we just have to wait forever. And that could be true for you. And then there are others that want to keep going and they want to keep on the ascension process. And they understand that they, as sovereign beings, have free will and are deserving of available love, can exit a soul contract within a certain amount of time, right? You can't always just exit because you want to. And if you're trying to avoid the work, you definitely can't exit. That's why I think a lot of people say you don't have free will on the twin flame journey, because people will try to hit the exit button whenever they feel pain. They're like, I want out. This is terrible. And so as a result, people will be like, you can't exit the twin flame journey. I've tried. Well, yes, that's because you're trying to avoid the work. You can't exit if you're trying to avoid the work. But if you actually have a twin flame that is not joining you, then what you can do is you can use your free will to break the karmic loop, to break the cycle, and to leave the twin flame journey with a twin who's really not ready. And if they're actually not ready, meaning they're not secretly doing the work, you're not secretly still in tandem with them, and meaning you don't know, then the universe will send you another twin flame. That's what happened to me. And that's what happens to others. And not everybody has this option. It definitely seems to be if your twin does not do the work and doesn't do it in their window of opportunity, and then the universe responds, and the universe is not going to hold you back. Who would do that? What great teacher would try, somebody who was really ready would try to hold you back? Nobody. So the only complication is, like I said, if they're actually doing the work, but you just don't know that they're doing the work, or if you both are matching each other and you don't know. And so you could still be on the journey and not know that you're on the journey. You could think that they're not doing it. That you could, that's where it gets a little complicated, your interpretations, because the soul contract could still be active, but you might not necessarily be aware of it. But you will be sent either a soulmate, a karmic, or another twin flame under certain conditions if your partner is not doing the work. Okay. To be happy is not to be with an avoidant. Usually that's true. Just like to be happy is to not be with somebody who's anxiously attached, because somebody who's very, very anxiously attached can take a beautiful blossoming relationship and suffocate it. So there's a balance. You want to be securely attached. If you don't know how to get securely attached, you're welcome to book a one-on-one with me. Join my True Love Masterminds group. I have a special right now. If you join during the live, you save $15 a month, get access to exclusive masterclasses and support for your journey in our private forum. Or you could also just join my Attachment Styles and Twin Flames email list. Link is in the bio, all of those links. Okay, collage. Is it normal to second guess whether you have a twin flame? Yes, it is. Is it normal to second guess whether or not you have a twin flame connection with somebody? Yes, this is part of the recognition phase. When you're in the recognition phase, you are appreciating the gravity of the connection. Your mind is still kind of stuck in three-dimensional love and 3D love, karmic love. And so you're being pulled in this other direction, but you haven't fully entered into this new mode of understanding what the journey is. And so there's this lots of vacillation. This is also when one or both people may not acknowledge the twin flame connection. You may not openly talk about twin flames. You feel this magnetic. You wonder, do they feel it too? Is it just as intense for them? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. We can talk about that later. And so what happens is that your mind will go back and forth. It's extremely normal, especially when you're early on in the twin flame journey. Wendy, how do I fix a communication problem with my twin? This is a broad question, hard for me to answer without a one-on-one consult. You can book a one-on-one consult if you want specific advice, but I'm going to do my best here. You have to have a twin that is willing to communicate, first of all. And some of them, if they have any sort of avoidant attachment style, are not going to be willing to communicate. So you have to be sure that you have a partner that can communicate, wants to communicate. And then once you figure that out, and you make sure you figure out the mode that works for them. So, for example, let's say you are a very verbose talker, or you're very passionate and your twin is more soft-spoken. You have a tendency of, let's say, talking over them or dominating the conversation. They're not going to feel safe communicating about a very personal or hard to talk about thing for them under that environment, right? Because you kind of like outmatch them. Or let's say that their native tongue is not your native tongue. And so you're a native speaker and you're just like firing at them. Well, they're going to feel like they can't communicate. They're going to start shutting down because they don't know how to have the space and the time to be heard. So in that case, you might try a different method, like writing each other letters or email, or I like voice notes. So all my coaching, by the way, is voice note coaching over WhatsApp, Telegram, or Signal. And so you allow for them to talk the entire time without speaking by listening to them speak. And you can listen to it at your own pace if it's something that's hard. This is also really great for people who do have avoidance in their life, because you can A, see if a message has been listened to, but B, you can let them listen at their own pace. You can let them reply when they're deactivated, because sometimes when you're talking to somebody who can't communicate, they're not a verbal processor, or they do have avoidant attachment, you're talking, but they're not processing. They actually can't process because they're so overwhelmed by the feelings. So when you put some distance in it, either by voice notes or by written communication, you take some of that out, and that might help you, Wendy. Okay, Zamira, how do I change my fearful avoidant attachment? It is hard, actually. It usually takes years, to be honest with you, if not decades, depending on the pace in which you work. So therapy, in my opinion, is a great start. Therapy is slower than coaching, at least my style of coaching, but therapy is more appropriate if you need a pace that is slower, more gentle, versus a confrontational, like I talk as much as you do in a coaching session, and I reveal things that may be uncomfortable, ask you to examine parts of yourself. I challenge you. Sometimes I just outright give you observations that I know are difficult for your ego to handle, and that results in quick changes, but not if you are somebody that struggles with that level of seeing yourself. And some fearful avoidants are more sensitive to self-criticism or criticism from other people, so it can create some barriers. So if you are somebody, and I'm not saying you are, but if you are somebody that has any sort of mental issue where you need to see somebody ongoing, then you're somebody that would work better in a therapy type of environment versus coaching. If you're somebody who's healthy, especially if you're like neurodivergent, where you see patterns and you understand things very intuitively and you feel like therapy is too slow, or you feel like sometimes you know more about yourself than the therapist does, then coaching, particularly with somebody like me, can shortcut your results and compress your transformation in months versus years. But it takes a while, and you, in my personal opinion, for fearful avoidance, you really need the support of somebody who's used to working with fearful avoidant attachment style to help you through some of those issues. But you can also self-work at a slower pace and self-teach yourself with books on love and attachment style. I would recommend for you to read, what is it called? Oh, I recommend it so much, but now the name is, Wired for Love. This teaches about attachment styles. Wired for Love teaches about attachment styles without any of the heavy labels. So avoidant and anxious, in my personal opinion, are kind of negatively charged. So it teaches you about these concepts in a way that is neutral and gives you a framework of understanding that is positive for every attachment style, and gives you exercises to work through with a partner like intimacy exercises, highly recommend it. Wired for Love is that book recommendation. Okay, a couple more. Okay, so Thelma, I came in late. Can you give a brief overview of how to identify a twin flame? Yes, a twin flame journey will advertise itself based on signs and serendipities. There's going to be a chance meeting, a divine coordination. There's going to be something unusual about the way that you met, or you're going to feel that it's an unusual connection. You're going to look back and see that maybe you were at the same place. It could be the same work environment. It could be that you were in the same city at some random year when they were living there and you were on vacation and you were walking, with your family and you didn't know that they were like right down the street. There's also mirroring. So events from their past are going to mirror yours. You could have a father wound, a mother wound that's very similar, a complementary. You could have an obscure pet's name that you both share, like both of your animals are named this really random name that most people don't even recognize. There's going to be occurrences like that mirroring. You could physically mirror each other, so in appearance, but this isn't always the case. There could be significant cultural or age differences or something that's very, very different about your life, but you feel that you're both the same or similar at the same time. And there are often angel numbers that prepare you and that show you along the way that you are in a twin flame connection. So 1111 is one of them. 1212 is another one. It also could be 222 or 2222. Or you'll see license plates with their name or some shared moment between you, like a date or something important. There's also like uncanny things that happen, like you bump into them when you are thinking about them. You might dream about them before you meet them. You might have downloads about meeting somebody. So all of this is revealing to you that you're on this coordinated journey. But then when you meet them, there's going to be some recognition. It may not always be an overwhelming physical attraction. That can come later. It can be like a slow burn attraction, but you are going to have some feeling like this person is important or this is a significant something in my life. But it may, depending on how you meet them, take some time to really recognize, but you are early on going to recognize their soul, their essence, their immanence, and the weight of the situation in some significant way. Even if you can't characterize it with words or in a way that makes sense, you're going to feel it at some point early on in the journey. Then you're going to receive this deep understanding in your nervous system as you progress, as gifts start to open up, as energy starts to open up, other abilities, telepathy could start opening up. There's going to be an expansion of spiritual gifts that you already have, or you're going to be initiated into the turning on of those spiritual things. So for me, it was energy, and it was sitting across from my first twin at a platonic professional meeting and feeling some really weird sensations in my chakras. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't have words to describe it. I literally did not understand it. I was like, what is this? But I'm sitting there playing it cool, right? I'm drinking my coffee and I'm like, yes, I think so. Yeah, yeah, we should definitely do this and that. And meanwhile, my nervous system is telling me, something's going on. Something's going on with this going on. And the way it felt like is there was some like energy pool that was connecting me to my twin. And I'd never felt energy in my entire life. I didn't do Reiki. I didn't do yoga. I didn't meditate. I didn't read spiritual books. I didn't go to church. I mean, in my youth, I did, right? But like at this point, I was an atheist. I wasn't going to any sort of sound healing, sound bath meditation, none of that. So when I started having these experiences, that was a big eye opener for me. And then I had clairsentience that developed and other things. Other people have feelings that are very, like you can feel your twin all the way across the world. Something is wrong with them. When they're intimate with a partner, with a karmic, you can feel when they're angry. I've had that happen too. You can feel when they're about to arrive. You can feel when they're about to call. You're connected into this higher intelligence of understanding and knowing that is beyond any 3D construct that you've ever had. That's why it's an awakening journey. That's why it's one of the big differences between a soulmate and a karmic relationship, because a soulmate relationship, you don't necessarily have that. If you're already a spiritually awakened being, you can have that with soulmates, but it's not a feature of a soulmate relationship. It is a feature of a twin flame relationship. It's one of the distinguishing features that I find. You're going to have some gifts open up or expand, some abilities that are going to take you into the 5D consciousness that you may or may not be ready for, and so is your twin. But whether or not they're awake and receptive to it, that's a different story. So some people experience telepathy and they're like, turn it off. I don't want anything to do with it. Some of them experience this incredible magnetism where it feels like they're floating when they're in the presence of their twin, and it's so overwhelming. They're like, nope, I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk to them ever again. And so they have to say yes to the journey in my personal experience. But there's a window of opportunity to say yes. And those are just some of the common ones. Let's see. There are other signs and tells. Okay, so, and if you want to know more whether or not it's a twin flame or a soulmate, I have a playlist that you can go to check in my profile that talks about the differences between even a divine ray and a twin flame and soulmates and karmics. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Promise I am lying. All right. Hi, nice to see you. I wasn't sure how you were going to respond after my last comment to you, which by the way, I felt that your observations were very valid. There's always more sides to a story. This is somebody who commented on one of my other videos about hearing all sides of a story and accounting for them. And so I found your comment to be very valid. And but I also feel that it's okay to honor people's sides. So in your case, you're asking, in your view, is there a potential link between past lives and twin flames? What could it be? My true answer is I'm not sure. If you asked me early in the journey, I would have said yes. Always there's a past life connection with a twin flame. And because that's what it feels like. It feels like you've known them for multiple lifetimes, and it feels like you have this history with them. There's a familiarity, but I don't always know to what extent that literally maps to a seed of consciousness. So let me back up and say that when we pass onto another life, I feel that we dissipate our consciousness unless it's coherent. And that means that the memory of us gets recycled into the ether. That's a personal opinion. I'm not asking you to see it the way. It's an invitation, but I'm just sharing. When you have a soul contract, there's a seed of consciousness, a seed of remembrance that you have, and a seed that they have that maintains its coherence. So if originally in your past life, your consciousness had an aggregated coherence of like a balled up fist, and when you pass, that fist opens and you get into wherever. But you have a little chunk that is coherent, and that little chunk is like the part that resonates with you and your twin flame. This is how I see it, potentially. And so then that little chunk will web together energy and vibration and patterns and weave together a life in addition to being aggregated with other chunks. And then you and your twin will come together and you'll have some remembrance, and then you'll have some shared memories from perhaps a past life. You might even have visions of what that is. Now, the only thing that challenges this is that I don't know how the whole system works. And I don't know how to account for what I believe are other religious philosophies and frameworks that I do believe are valid, because I do believe that other people have valid frameworks of what happens in the afterlife. And my personal opinion now, being a little more mature in the journey, and I'm not saying this is the correct way, but it's an expanded view, is that there are multiple frameworks that describe what happens in the afterlife, and there are a lot of similarities between those. And so there's some truth that we're all kind of like espousing, that we're touching on, but there are some variations. Does it mean that those frameworks are wrong? I don't personally think so. I actually believe that there are sects and segregated chunks of souls in our society, and that based on our culture and our upbringing, we need different teachers and we need different systems to help us ascend. And so in the afterlife, I believe that there are different systems that you sign up for, and this can be religion. It could be, a metaphysical system. It could be a text system. There's many different ways that you can do it. But whatever you sign up for is what you are co-creating and co-manifesting. And so then you have this experience that sends you into an afterlife. I believe that if you signed up for a system and you've manifested that and you don't want to be recycled into, samsara or the reincarnation engine, that you should be able to use your free will and your sovereignty to not. And that if you sign up for a system that elects to ascend you out of that recapitulation, then you should be free to go, right? And so honoring now that there are other truths and other systems out there, the idea that every twin flame experience has a past life tie, I want to say yes, but the truth is I actually don't know, because it depends on the system. Did they come from the same system? Did they sign up for the same system? How does it all work? And that's where I still have some lingering questions that I haven't solved. But it definitely feels like there's shared history and shared memory, and there's a deeper connection with soul family, with twin flames, and even karmic. Sometimes like you're on a lesson that's on repeat, like you're caught on this record and you feel it. Yes, they're in a different body, they have a different face, they have a different name, but gosh, it feels familiar. Why is that? It's because you're working on a lesson and a pattern. And when you raise your consciousness, then you can see the interplay of all of those dynamics, and you can start to tease apart what's really yours and what's not, and then what's of this lifetime and this identity construct and what's of beyond. And that's where I actually was just talking about with points of awareness on my podcast this week. I have a Spotify podcast, also backed up on my YT channel, that you can listen to. It's called Points of Awareness, where I take you through the levels of awakening and expansion of awareness beyond this life, this lifetime, but in the context of multidimensionality and also from the eyes of creation. Okay, Eva, divine counterpart. Yes, that's what I like to use now, a divine counterpart instead of a divine masculine and divine feminine, and not from one that completes you. I think that this is a very neutral, gender neutral term that allows for switch energies and integrated energies while honoring the presence of a very powerful divine connection. Hi, ZJ. Nice to see you again. Okay, let's see. Go down a little bit. I think I'm a little behind. Okay. All right. This is a good question. Ala Bizabi, how do I know if going no contact with my twin flame is necessary, or me just being avoidant in my own way? Oh, this is such a good question. This is, let me think about this, because it's actually a really deep question, because you're teasing out, A, is it right for me to go no contact because of whatever's happening in my twin flame connection? So first of all, there's attunement to self. Like, what do I need? Versus, am I just slipping into avoidant traits? And so if you were my coaching client, what I would challenge you to do is to communicate like you were communicating to them, but to communicate to me, or just make a message to yourself, write it out in an email or send a voice note to yourself of everything you would say if you weren't afraid. Just everything you would say if you weren't afraid. Just that, right? And then when you look at that, ask yourself, what am I avoiding, if anything, saying now? Have I said everything to them? And if I've said everything to them, then it might be time to block. Then it might be time to go no contact. But if you're actually avoiding something, there's going to be something in there that you haven't said that you're afraid to say. So if you start with, what am I afraid to say? And then if you really closely examine everything that you've written down, and then you ask yourself, have I actually said that? And then challenge yourself, if I want to get over these avoidant patterns, because getting over them requires communication and leaning into intimacy when you want to lean out. So then you use this as an exercise to not only illuminate to yourself your self-attunement, but your communication. Have I actually communicated completely? If I was not afraid of anything, saying exactly what I wanted to say to them, have I actually said everything to them? And if the answer is yes, and you're just repeating yourself, then it might be time for no contact. But without knowing your situation, like we would untangle it before I advised you on that. If you were working with me on a one-on-one consult, link is in the bio if you're interested, not just you, anybody, it's open to anybody. We would actually I would understand what has been the lead up, what have you said, and then we would do that exercise and you would feel it in your soul. Then we would talk through it. Then I would coach you on doing it. This is the beauty of asynchronous coaching. Then you would do it, and then we would wait for the feedback, and we'd see how it all played out. And we would work together through that process and helping you to actually get over your avoidant attachment, which congratulations, you're asking the right questions. This is a high level question that I expect of somebody that's really doing the work and the journey to really untangle, is it right for me? Or am I just being back in my pattern? Like how do I untangle that? Well done. Okay. Yes, DG, it is a curse. It feels like that to have disorganized attachment, but you know what's beautiful about it is that it gives you such a sensitivity that's unparalleled in this world. It gives you so many gifts and emotional gifts and sensitive gifts from that trauma response of having to be hypervigilant that it actually makes you an amazing relationship partner when you do the healing. It can be like a beautiful gift that you have to give to whomever it is that you are trying to come into union with. Okay, so the discount for the group is right now, the group is already discounted. Normally it is 120 USD, but the price is 105 USD. And after the live, I'm actually about 2 minutes after the live to give, the stragglers, if there are anybody who's trying to sign up after the live, then I go back and I change the price. So this is a special price. It's already in play and it locks you in for a lifetime price. You notice that the group actually changes over time depending on how many members. So this locks you in to the first 20 member price range. It locks you in to a $15 discount from what I currently have. So now is the time to sign up. I don't always offer these. I do on occasion during the lives, but this is the first time I think I've offered this in the last 4 weeks. So it's kind of hit or miss. But if you want in the True Love Masterminds group and you want that discount, all you have to do is go to the link in my bio, go down to the school community, the True Love Masterminds group, and sign up during the live, and the price will be locked in for you. Okay. River Girl, can you have giant lapse of memory in the better years of life? I hardly remember raising my children. So I want to be careful here and say that I don't know your history. I don't know if there are any physical issues, and I'm not that type of doctor that I would be able to give you that counsel. But keep in mind that there are different frameworks of viewing the world and experiences like this. So ultimately we are in a human form, right? And we're having these experiences. And then we have questions about our memory. And there's one way, if we were talking to a medical doctor, there's one way they would view that. There's one way that somebody from maybe a church would view that. And there's somebody like myself who has a quantum perspective that views it differently. So without understanding more parts of your journey, I can't say what's going on for you. And I feel like that would be crossing a line because I don't know. It could be a number of different things. But assuming that you're healthy and that there's no issues physically, and assuming that you've been cleared, for things like any sort of like memory problems, any there can be interactions and medicines, for example. So like if you're on any, if you drink, whether or not, I'm not asking you to reveal that information. I don't need that information, but there can be many causes for things like this. And so assuming that all of those are in the clear, then you're opening up to a different question potentially, but without understanding where you're at in other parts of your life, it's hard for me to be able to say exactly what I think because I would need more information to be able to even ballpark a guess. But there are other possibilities because when you start quantum shifting, you do see changes in your memory. This is through principles like retrocausality. If you're not familiar with them, this is the type of thing that I talk about in my EC by Dr. C private playlist. It's the first link in my Stand store, $10 a month, gets you access to this vault, and also meditation recordings delivered to your inbox for quantum shifting and practicing quantum shifting. But you have memory changes when you are shifting in between lifelines and syncing up, but usually they're not large gaps. Usually they're not like big years. And during the period of retrocausality, there will be almost like a degradation of the memories, so they'll get fuzzier. When I work with my esoteric reality shifting clients, we actually try not to talk about the past too much and try not to memorialize it, because when you start shifting and preparing for shifting, those memories get fuzzy and fuzzy and fuzzy until they go blank, and you have to be comfortable with them going blank, and you have to be comfortable with kind of like letting them go, the brain will want to latch onto them. And then you have to wait or fill them in with a timeline that you're trying to sync up to. But this is like advanced practice. And without knowing if you're even a reality shifter, it's hard for me to know if that's happening to you. But there are other explanations for why your memories might be getting fuzzier. But in my experience, it's not like giant leaps. So you want to be sure that you're clearing yourself with the appropriate professionals that can help you if you have anything physical going on. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. Thelma, can these abilities develop years into the relationship? You know what? This is a personal opinion, and this is just based on what I have seen. No. Usually, if you're in a relationship that you feel is a twin flame, because it has the hallmarks of some of these, but you don't have gifts that are awakening or advancing, but you have like karmic patterns, usually that's a karmic or a catalyst, in my personal opinion. And so I've not spoken to anybody that's been on a twin flame journey that didn't have some gifts and abilities, even like strengthening of intuition, if not some pretty deep experiences in the astral plane or sensitivities start to develop. It doesn't mean it always manifests like telepathy or energy sensing. Sometimes it manifests in very unusual ways. Some of my clients have very unusual gifts and abilities start to open up that you don't read about anywhere else, but it's like a change in the perceptual system. Like their nervous system is opening up to more levels of information, and then they're able to integrate and use that information. And I've not worked with anybody who I felt was actually on a twin flame journey that didn't have that within, I would say, the first 6 months to a year of a twin flame relationship. And maybe it could stretch into like year 2, but usually it's a pretty fast graduation through that awakening experience, or even just that ability to feel at that heightened level. And so after 2 years, I would say there are 0 people that I've worked with that have been on a twin flame journey and have not had some of those abilities, even if they've been, just starting. Like, it doesn't mean they're full blown. You're like full blown psychic, but it means like you're going to start to have like the beginning signs of those relatively soon in an actual twin flame relationship. Again, that's a personal opinion based on the people that I've worked with, but I'm open to other interpretations. As I go along, I'm always trying to update my model of what I feel is the best framework. So I'm always integrating new bits of information and relaying that to you and to my clients in the way that helps everybody transform, because that's ultimately what this is about, is transforming through the ascension journey. Yes, Samira, sometimes I feel like with my husband, it's a karmic relationship. It probably is. Most people are usually in some type of karmic relationship, because they help us learn. Okay, humanos, siendo humanos, how can I step into my spiritual awakening? Okay, so this is a great time to talk about meditation, working with your nervous system, and to allow for your brain waves to take different modes. So normally the way that I'm speaking to you and the way that our 3-dimensional, that's a word, the way that our world operates is on beta wave brain activity. And so we function and we structure the world in this brainwave state. But to start to really deepen the spiritual awakening journey, you need to be able to shift out of the beta wave brain state into a flow state. So into like alpha, and then also into gamma. So when you're in meditation. And so either doing creative things, or even sports can do this, where you get into a flow state and you lose time and space, or is even better, actually doing guided meditations. If you have a hard time meditating, start with guided meditations, because it gives your brain something to latch onto and something to focus onto. But as you progress, you're going to be able to drop in without the guide part. But even then, you can still do the guided meditations. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want to shift your brainwave activity, and that's going to help you to interface with the quantum field, with your guides, with your spiritual entourage team, whoever's there supporting your journey. And most of us have that. It's also going to allow you for your upgrades, your DNA upgrades, your light codes. If that's you, you may or may not be a starseed and have light code activations. And then surrounding yourself with content that reinforces that is going to help you solidify that more in your reality. Okay. Okay. All right, Tim. I feel like an octopus when it comes to this subject. Is it possible many partners? No, not for everybody. No, for some people, they only have one twin flame, and that's all they ever have. And so when I talk about other people's experiences, it doesn't mean that that's at the exclusion of a monogamous one partner twin flame experience that many people, perhaps yourself, because you're aligned that way, have. So there's room for you, there's room for everybody. But because there's disagreement with whether or not there can be multiple twin flames, I like to be sure I talk about it because I need to represent what I feel is the accuracy of the full robustness of the twin flame experience to transmit that accordingly. But it's not done at the lieu or the expense of a traditional one twin flame journey, which many people have, and that's a beautiful journey. Especially if you're not starting at the shadow octaves. If you're, coming into the world where you're not in that like shadowy vibration of love, but you still have, a couple things that you're working on, then there's no reason that you couldn't have a single twin flame, especially if you're both available for love, you're both single, and you both are mostly securely attached, then you would almost definitely, I think, have just one single twin flame because you would be able to work together and to stay in the journey together, and you wouldn't have life situations that are preventing a union and impairing your ability to go through the lessons. Okay. I promise I'm lying. Have you read any of the books by Dr. Brian Weiss? No, I haven't. It's interesting. I love hearing other people's stories. I thought that I heard of Brian Weiss before, but I actually try to make it all my own. And I've gone through periods of isolation where I don't read other people's work, but I do listen. I do draw from parallels with a couple of people. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, I watch some of his videos that come through because he's quantum style, and I love that he's doing the science of this and finding real biological effects. So I love that. I'm thrilled by that. But I would say on a month-by-month basis, I watch maybe 1 or 2 videos of his a month. And I also like Abraham Hicks. But I would say maybe I've seen 15 videos in the past maybe 2 years, and they're like little clips. And then I do watch Bashar sometimes. So on a month-by-month basis, I would maybe watch like 10 videos of Bashar because I feel that that's also multidimensionality, but I don't study other people's work. I don't teach other people's framework, and I don't read other people's books because ultimately I'm writing my own because I am a neuroscientist by training who feels like I stumbled into this awakening experience spontaneously. And for me, that's an amazing gift. And if there are parallels in other people's parts of the world, then I want to agree with those or disagree with those, but I don't want to unknowingly misattribute. And so I tend to be protective of like where the boundaries are between my work and other people's work, and I try to give people credit. So if I read too much of other people's stuff, then I lose that ability to define and say, this is like so-and-so and this is my work. I lose that boundary. So that's the reason for that. But I love hearing that somebody else also talks about this. For me, that just resonates even more that we're touching on something. I believe that we're on this leading line of the next level human, whatever that means. And it's an interesting topic, one that I spend a lot of my content in other places talking about. Okay, so Lindsay, I was in a 5-year karmic relationship with a narcissist. I'm sorry, he broke you. Moved back to my hometown. Let's see, met up with an old school friend. It's been a year of push-pull, and I believe he's my twin flame. Our connection's very weird, and I can't explain it. I know he feels it too, and he's avoidant. We're in no contact now. 3 times already. Oh, the cycles. I know, I feel you. It's annoying. Yes, okay, so for you, what you need to do is you need to do the personal work. So you have a pattern of attracting people that offer you a love that is shadowy in nature. A narcissist that broke you, that's a very destructive love that you consented to. I know you didn't know you were signing up for that in the beginning. But now you've gone through it, you have the ability to look back and see that you said yes, and you kept saying yes, and you kept saying yes until finally you collapsed. This is the thing about people who are deep in their shadow patterns, is that they will take everything from you. They will take your dignity, your self-respect, your self-esteem. And when they destroy you, when you open yourself up to that, right? They will see you in that state and they will sometimes laugh, they will abandon you, or they will weaponize it against you and tell all your friends and your family. It can be very dire. So now you understand this about yourself, that there's something about you that gave your power away. This is actually the first masterclass ever in my True Love Masterminds group, is this pattern right here. Because why is it that we, like a moth to a flame, will go to somebody like a narcissist that eats us up, turns us inside out, uses us, abuses us, and then throws us away, and we're left to rebuild the pieces. So I know that you've moved on, and I know that you're with a better flavor of love, with an avoidant, but you're still in the push-pull, and now it's a twin flame, so now the stakes are raised even more. Sometimes these are the most powerful, potent lessons, because it's through pain that allows us to change, because it gets us to stop long enough to ask ourselves, why does this keep repeating? You haven't given any indication that your person is a narcissist, but keep in mind that narcissism and avoidant behaviors can overlap, but narcissism and anxious behaviors can overlap. So it doesn't exclude him from being a covert narcissist, even if he's showing up. But if you have a pattern of needing to have boundaries, or needing to earn love, or needing to find your power, then you're going to draw destructive love to you to show you how to love yourself. And when you understand this, the fastest you understand this, the less suffering you have to go through. So highly recommend for you doing some ongoing work like the True Love Masterminds group, but it doesn't have to be that. But you need to understand why you yourself are choosing and preferentially attracted to people who are treating you in this way. And although you have an avoidant right now, that's not as bad as it was with a narcissist. It doesn't mean that in 20 years, if we were to fast forward, we wouldn't be having a different conversation. So I want to be sure that you're set and you understand that in your soul, that you're here to learn something. And when you understand what you're learning, you take the focus off of the union, you take the focus off of winning the love, and you start putting the focus on, what am I here to solve? If this is a consciousness puzzle, what do I need to do differently? If the universe is giving me the opportunity to choose differently, how do I do that here? That's what my coaching is all about. You can also do this on your own, but I highly advise you to do that work so you can move through this gracefully. Okay, a couple more, and then I am going to sign off. Okay, let's see. Yes, if you want, the link for that is in the bio. It's the school group. You can check the details there. I do have a special during the live, $15 off. The price is already reduced, so if you sign up during the live, you have access to that special price. Terry, my daughter passed away June. Oh, I'm so sorry, Terry. I am not a medium. And although I do have the ability to feel into the field and receive messages, it is not something that I do anymore based on the energy and where I'm intending on my boundaries. But I want you to know that my heart is with you and that I am so sorry for your loss. Okay, a couple more. Thank you, Eva. I appreciate that. Okay. Yes, so Zamira, this is exactly right. Here we go. Afraid of being seen. I struggle with fear to be vulnerable because with my AA husband, because he used what I shared. Exactly. So when you are afraid of being seen, you're actually going to tie people to you that reinforce that belief of why you need to be safe and why you can't share, because you can't stand up and be fully who you are. And you don't know who to trust. And sometimes you pick the wrong people because you don't listen to yourself. And so that's a whole other lesson. But when you're afraid to be seen, you are going to be with people that abuse your trust and keep you locked into this prison. So this is what I was talking about. So the way out of it is to be actually very real with yourself and with the world, and to not share things with people who are not safe. And I'm not saying that you made a mistake, but he was not a safe person. He's supposed to be a safe person because you married him. But did you marry somebody who was actually safe for you? If you look all the way back at your choices, were there signs all along the way that he wasn't safe? Are you preferentially choosing people who are not actually emotionally safe? and trying to win their safety and something that they may or may not be able to give because you yourself aren't trusting what you're really feeling about them in the beginning. Because when you really trust what you're really feeling, you recognize that they're not somebody who has the capacity or the desire to be the partner that you really want and you deserve. And now we get to self-love and we get to boundaries. And so when you trust yourself in the beginning, then you know that you don't have to lean on people that are not trustworthy. And you don't have to, I'm not saying your marriage was a mistake, but you don't have to believe in the illusion if they're not actually safe. You feel inside of you, in the very beginning, you feel whether or not you're safe. And if those signals are telling you no, then you're going to have painful lessons to teach you why you should listen to yourself. And the option isn't make yourself small and disappear and stay with people like that. The option is choose better people. So you know when you're really safe and you're giving your heart to the right person who is actually going to exchange safety in return. And this is a lifelong lesson that I know you're doing the personal work. I know you're doing that deeper examination, but when you're really in alignment with that, you don't actually fear who you give your heart to, because when you really love yourself and you're keeping your own, then you don't fear somebody taking advantage of you, because you know that you can set boundaries early on to keep them out before really negative things happen. But when you don't know that, when you don't love yourself, when you don't trust yourself, then you don't set boundaries and you let people in the small ways betray you or take advantage of you or show you that they're not trustworthy. And you keep giving and opening up and opening up. And that just keeps you in this cycle of afraid of being seen, because that keeps you with people who tell you why you need to fear being seen. When actually, when you're with the right people, you don't have to worry about being seen. You don't have to worry about somebody hurting you. When you're with the right person, when you choose somebody safe, you don't have to worry about half the stuff that you have to worry about when you're not actually listening to yourself in the beginning. So that's how we build these prisons. I think that's a great way to end. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for your likes. Thank you for those who are here for a long duration. And if you want to work with me, you can check the link in the bio, book a one-on-one consult, join my True Love Masterminds group. You have about 2 minutes before the price goes back up. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much. I also have a podcast on Spotify. Check the link at the bottom, at the very bottom of my Stand store is the podcast link, and my EC by Dr. C is a private vault for quantum shifters and those opening up to multidimensionality living, shifting into parallel worlds, and quantum meditations. All right. I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of the support.